2.3 million people are living with bipolar disorder or manic depressive disorder. 775 out of 4,423 people are Black and living with bipolar disorder.
You have tuned into Breaking the Mask of Depression with your host, Diva with Depression.
Hey guys, welcome to Breaking the Mask of Depression with me, your host, the Diva with Depression. I hope you guys are doing well. How are you really doing? You see, I pause because we don't ask that enough. Instead of saying how you doing, when you see people in your world, say how are you really feeling, and then that encourages them to share how they really feel. Sometimes we don't share because we think that we're burdening people or we're ashamed, but you would be surprised that everybody's going through the same thing, and they're going through something. It doesn't matter what it is. It just seems like nowadays everything is crazy and we're all going through something. So we have to be patient with each other. We have to be kind to each other and just understand. Try to start understanding where people are coming from and who they are. We don't give people grace. And I'm guilty because forgiveness, fuck that. Letting things slide, fuck that. I'm not that person. And I really do sit around and think about that because people give me grace. My friends give me grace. So I have to start, and I'm good, I'm pretty good, but it's people that, that you don't get along with, or people that do you wrong, and we just have to be better at maybe understanding where that came from, where that behavior came from. Doesn't mean that you have to suck it up or take it on the cheek. You just have to process and see, what is behind someone's behavior. So, remember that I said last episode, go listen to it, the ABCs of depression, that I wanted to start touching on the different types of mental illnesses, because people just say that they have depression, and that's just a general term. There's different types of depression. And so the next one is bipolar disorder, and there's bipolar disorder 1, bipolar disorder 2, and if I pronounce this name right, cyclothymic disorder. And those are the names that came from the National Institute of Mental Health. And sidebar, they have a wealth of information if you need to do some research or get some information to advocate for yourself. National Institute for Mental Health. And so there are 3 types of bipolar disorder, and this bipolar disorder I'm not going to say that it's hard to detect, but it's often confused and misdiagnosed, especially in Black people. I probably shared this story along the lines, but I went to the doctor and he asked me if I had mood swings, and I said yes. And so he diagnosed me with bipolar disorder and gave me medication for that. But I didn't have bipolar disorder. My mood swings were, I'm in hell and I go upstairs in hell. That's my mood swing. So, we have to be careful because, of course, we know that Blacks don't get the quality health care that they deserve. I want to say that they are more often afraid to go to the doctor, ashamed to go to the doctor. And so when we do go, we just throw out some symptoms. Oh, I've been depressed. Oh, I've been blue. And it's just so much deeper than that. So you have to, that's what made me start saying that I wanted to do this, because we have to, when you go, and I know it's annoying, but I write down everything. I went to the psychiatrist the other day and broke out my notes from my phone, about medications that I wanted to talk about, my symptoms. So that's a good thing. That's somewhere to start. If you notice that you're feeling kind of off, start documenting, your symptoms and what you're going through. And so in 2023, 775 people out of 4,423 people were diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1. Blacks, 775 blacks identified with bipolar disorder type 1. And so the rate is the same as everybody else, but the care is not the same. So that's what I was trying to explain. Or even if we go get a diagnosis, who's to say that we're going to get a quality psychiatrist, a quality therapist, and quality medication management? So, of course, that's always the case with us in our communities. Just not getting the care that we deserve, and also because we don't go get the care that we deserve. So we have to be mindful. Everybody's using that word now. We have to be mindful of where we are, who we are, and what's going on with us. So like I said, there are 3 types of bipolar disorder, and all of them are the same: the mood changes, the energy, activity levels. So bipolar 1 disorder is manic episodes that last for at least 7 days. And that's every day, for most of the day. Manic symptoms that are severe, that the person needs medical care. And so, although depression is tucked in there with bipolar 1, it's a different type of illness, and there are different types of treatment. The medications are not always the same. Bipolar 2 disorder is a pattern of depressive episodes and hypomanic episodes. And so the hypomanic episodes are less severe than the manic episodes in bipolar 1. So I was told, and I'm not sure if this is, if this is true or not, but I think that I heard that bipolar 1 is a little bit more severe than bipolar 2. So that's something to research. If your doctor tells you you have bipolar 1, then you make sure that it's not 2. And the other one, the third disorder, is called cyclothymia. And that's just constant hypomanic and depressive symptoms. And they don't last that long. The episodes occur less than the bipolar 1. So these are the things that we have to look out for, because sometimes, and this is new to me because I didn't know that there was a third type of bipolar disorder. I just thought it was bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. So I'm learning with you guys today. The study, there's also another study, and I talk about this also, is that Black Americans are more likely to be misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, psychotic disorder, and bipolar disorder. And that is a problem. I was on TikTok yesterday, and I won't tell you the name of the person, but she found out after years and years and years of being treated with bipolar disorder that she's not bipolar. And so I'm like, I was floored. I shouldn't be shocked, but I was shocked, because the medications that she was probably taking, and the treatment that she was getting, it wasn't helping. And the reason why it wasn't helping is because that's not what she had. And you have to make sure that the doctors are listening to you. Like, make them understand, this is what I'm going through. I cannot function. I'm always telling my doctor, that the psychiatrist, that I cannot function. I can't think straight. The littlest thing, that it may be little to your mind, but it's not little. Not being able to cook dinner, not having the energy to take a shower. Those are real things, and those are things that you need to keep track of. And you need not be ashamed to be struggling with those symptoms, because it's all millions of us. Those symptoms are across the line with mental illness. And although we do feel ashamed with some of them, like the hygiene part, I know that personally. It's part of depression. It's part of mental illness, and it's extreme. So if you find yourself not able to do your daily activities and care for yourself, that's a symptom of everything, and that's a reason to run to the doctor, because you don't want to put yourself in harm's way. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to hurt somebody else. So pay attention, pay close attention. And I know, guys, you get sick of me saying that, but you really do have to pay attention to who you are, where you are, how you're feeling, because we don't do that enough as Black people. We're so busy focused on, the hustle, living life. Our lives are different than other people, and we are constantly on the go, and we don't stop and take care of ourselves. We don't stop and pay attention to the fact that we're just not fucking feeling well. And we have to start doing that, because it's a deadly game that we're playing, and we're losing each other, and we can't afford to lose the great people in our community. You are a great person in the community, and we can't afford to lose you. So please, please, please. That was my rant, okay? So the bipolar disorder is different, and not much different, but it appears different. It shows up different. The symptoms are different in men and women. And so with women, we're diagnosed later in life. And that I can tell you that, because that is when the doctor told me that I had bipolar disorder. I was maybe 45, I think. So it shows up much later. We have milder mania experiences, but we still have them. The depressive episodes are more frequent, and 4 or more episodes a year. So we're diagnosed later, but our symptoms can be very intense. And like I was just saying, if you're experiencing thyroid problems, obesity, anxiety, and migraines, those can be a symptom of a mental illness, bipolar disorder specifically. So remember that men and women are totally different. Bipolar disorder in men is diagnosed earlier in life, and their episodes are more severe, especially their manic episodes. And they often don't seek medical care, of course. Men don't, and they're most likely to commit self-harm. And we think of when you say self-harm, people think of cutting or something like that, but really, like alcohol use, smoking, eating, just all of those things are symptoms of a mental illness, because we're doing things to cover up our feelings, to make us feel better. And so men you need to get out there and start going to therapy. If you don't want to take medication, that's okay. But if you feel like you need somebody to talk to, then there's no shame in getting therapy. You should see, you guys have to go on Instagram, and I say this all the time, but there are so many Black men on Instagram that are talking about their mental health. There are more organizations that are geared towards Black men and mental health. So there's no reason for you not to get help anymore. There's no reason for you to be ashamed, because there's so many of you going through it, And men are different than women. Women, we get together and we're like, oh God, I feel like shit, and blah blah blah. But men, it's like, hey, how you doing, fellas? And shoot the shit instead of talking about how you're really feeling. So if you start to experience like mood swings, men, and there's an increase in your alcohol use or your smoking, and the episodes of depression are really severe, then there's something wrong, and I want you to go and find out what's going on. The teens and young adults. Now, I often tell you guys that both of my children, I was not sure that they were struggling with a mental illness because they were teenagers, and we often blow off teen angst and teen attitude because that's what happens when you're teen. Not even teen, before that, your hormones start changing, you start thinking you're the shit, or you're thinking that you're not the shit. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. So I didn't recognize that my kids were struggling because I thought it was just teen stuff. Maybe they didn't like school, maybe they were being bullied, or maybe they're just going through different changes in their body. And so that's something that is very dangerous, because we are losing our young people to suicide because they're not being recognized, they're not being heard. We're just blowing them off and saying that they're teenagers and there are, they're just going through something, but it's something that it's more. And so some of the common signs is intense happiness or silliness, and that's also part of a mood swing. So one minute your child could be like in the dumps, and then the next minute they're swinging from a tree. Like going, just acting up, acting out, being silly, making jokes. It just and it's so quick. Sometimes you don't even realize it. The temper, oh my goodness, and the irritability, oh my goodness. Especially in our girls. And so we think that our girls are just being dramatic. And I have to say this on air again, I was always told, oh, you're so damn dramatic. And I think that I said that to my girls one or two times too often, because yes, teenage girls can be dramatic and things can be more extreme for them, but if they're hurting, and we have to recognize that they're hurting. And so there's no such thing anymore as being too dramatic. There's no such thing as, you're just being a teenager. Now you have to make sure that when your child comes home, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how you feel about your new high school. Let's talk about how you feel about, being excluded by your friends. And let's talk about why you're so irritable. Why are you shouting? Why is your temper so short? Talking fast, racing thoughts. That is a clear sign when it comes to bipolar. That's one of their major symptoms, is that the racing thoughts and the talking fast. Depression, with manic depression, it's usually the opposite. We're usually slurring our words. We're talking slow. So if your baby, teen, or child is starting to, have revving, I call it revving thoughts and speech, then, sit down and find out what's going on. They start to think that I said they're the shit, right? And that's the teen thing, but it's also a symptom. I'm going to read it verbatim. Having an inflated sense of ability, knowledge, and power. So it's not them just thinking that they're the shit. It's that that could be something, that could be a symptom. So we have to pay attention. Poor judgment. And listen, poor judgment is from birth to death. You know what I'm saying? Like we all have poor judgment in some field, but if your baby starts to just making harsh decisions, with different things frequently, then that's something to talk about. And so of course depression, ties into the bipolar disorder with the, the hopelessness, the sadness, the lonely, eating too much or too little. That's across the board. And so we have to start paying attention to our teens and recognizing that they're not just being dramatic, they are hurting or they're going through something, and we want to help them get through it. So there are different treatments for bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. The medication treatment is different for 1 and 2. And so I'm not going to say that I'm not sure about the specific medications that you take for 1 or you take for 2, but I do know for a fact that there are different classes of medication for bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. And there are also medications that are the same across the board. So there are medications that I take that somebody with bipolar 1 or 2 also takes, because remember, mental illness across the board is trying to regulate your emotions. And so the medications, there could be one medication that is depression, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, schizophrenia, seasonal affective disorder, anxiety. There could be one medication for, certain symptoms and all of those illnesses. So pay attention to that. And also, bipolar disorder is, how people say, oh, she's bipolar because somebody is acting different, or they're, supposedly acting out, and they're like, oh my gosh, she's acting fucking bipolar. And those are things that we have to stop saying, because we're brushing off how somebody is feeling. It's the same thing that's saying, oh, she's crazy. Well, okay, yes, I'm crazy, but I'm also struggling with things. I'm also living with a severe mental illness. So, crazy is part of who I am. And we have to stop being ashamed of it, because we're human, and having emotions is a human thing, and we shouldn't be ashamed to go and talk to someone and get help. And I'm specifically talking to men, because I've been having conversations with a lot of my friends lately, my guy friends, and they're struggling, but they won't go and get help because that's not what a man does. And we have to stop. They have to stop. You have to stop thinking like that, because we have to work together to save our communities. And if you're a black man and you don't feel comfortable talking to your male friends, then you don't want to go to therapy, maybe find one of your female friends or female family members that is understanding and is willing to listen and help you sort of work through how you're feeling, and decide, and then you can decide whether you want to go get help or not. You may, if you have bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, you may have a lifelong treatment, which means that you could be taking medication for the rest of your life, depending on the severity of the disorder. And I know that there are so many people that are, medication banners, against medication, but we got to do what we got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you need to take medication to regulate your emotions and get through the day, then that's what you have to do. I always think of it as, I'd rather be taking my medicine every day than drinking whiskey every day, because it's just whiskey. What's whiskey going to do? Whiskey is not going to help me get through my day. It's going to help me feel good for a little while, but it's not going to help me get through my day. It's not going to help me process my emotions and increase my energy level. So medication is important. And just because it's a psychotic medication, or a psychiatric medication, I should say, so what? There are people with diabetes that are taking medication every day, giving themselves insulin every day. There are people with high blood pressure that have to take medication every day for the rest of their life. People with heart disease, medication for the rest of their life. So it's an illness just like everything else, and don't be afraid to consider medication. Of course, talk therapy is another treatment, and I always tell people, you go to psychiatrists and you get diagnosed and you get medication, but your therapist is crucial in your treatment plan, because the therapist can notice things in you that the psychiatrist doesn't have time to notice. Because like I always tell you guys, a psychiatrist appointment is usually 20 minutes at max, whereas a therapy appointment is 45 minutes to an hour. So your therapist has more time to help you process what's going on and help you understand your symptoms, and they can help you better understand what you're going through, and if you really are living with a bipolar 1, bipolar 2, manic depression. So I know that most of the therapists that I've had, they keep track of my symptoms, so they know, well, this is changing. So if this is changing, then that means that she might be crossing over to A, B, C, or D. So when I was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder, it was a therapist that recognized that I didn't have bipolar disorder. So don't be afraid to tell your therapist everything, because that's what they're there for, number one. And number two, they see things that your psychiatrist or your primary care physician won't see in the short amount of time that they're with you. So I know that I keep saying this, but Black people, the state of the world is really fucked up, and some of the things that are going on in the world, especially for us, is, oh my God, it's mind-blowing. I was on Twitter the other day, and I just couldn't believe some of the rhetoric that is allowed, on a social media platform. I'm like, do you know that we could read this? Did you say that out loud? And so the harassment and the evil behavior towards Blacks, women and men are increasing, and it has a potential to become a major problem, more major than it already is. So make sure that you are regulating your emotions. Make sure that you are shielding yourself from the bullshit. Turn off the news. And there's nothing wrong with social media. I always say social media is a blessing and a curse, because you can go on social media and, like Twitter, for instance, you log on to Twitter and they have the trending, page, and you could just catch up real quick about what's going on in the world. You don't have to read everything. You don't have to read a whole article. So, just be mindful of what you're taking in. Going out into the world, just be aware. But recognize that this is not just frustration that we're dealing with. This really, people don't understand how much their environment affects their mental health. And so don't feel bad, or don't think that it's not possible that the politics is affecting your mental health. Don't think that corporate America is not affecting your mental health. There's so much going on, so much, and it triggers everything in some people. I was reading something the other day about our vice president, and it triggered me so bad. I had to write a post about it, because it's so disheartening, that this behavior is continuing, and we're in 2024. So I want you to pay attention to your symptoms, write them down. If you don't feel comfortable going to a psychiatrist first, go to your primary care physician with your listing and talk to them and set up a treatment plan from there. like I always say, one of my primary care physicians was the first to recognize that I was in the midst of a breakdown. It wasn't a psychiatrist. So she called the psychiatrist after she recognized, that I was spiraling. So don't discount your primary physician. They can help you find out what's going on and find a treatment. And make sure that you list and remember that there's a difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, and document it. So there's a bunch of stuff going on in September. First of all, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. And I can tell you that there is a difference between suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, and having a plan. And I have suicidal thoughts, I have suicidal ideation, but I don't have a plan to do something. But if you recognize that you want to hurt yourself or you don't want to be here anymore, even if you're getting up every day and saying, oh, damn, I woke up again, that's severe. That's dangerous. So you should talk to somebody about that. Like, get help right away. Call 988. Call the crisis text line. Go to a support group, a virtual support group. But it's so hard, and I'm being so honest with you guys, it's so hard for us not to want to in this life, because we are hurting, we are exhausted. I can't even explain my feelings where I'm at right now, that I'm so deep, and I don't know how you could feel so much and be numb at the same time. And there are several days that I'm like, damn it, I woke up again. A couple of times my friend will say, good morning, Dee, and in my head I'm like, it's not a good morning. I don't want to be here. I don't want to feel like this. I'm tired of it. So we want to prevent people from taking their life, and we have to be honest about it. It's not a conversation that we should shy away from. Suicide is real, and we have to face it head on, and that's from 3 years old on. Senior citizens, the rate for senior citizens in depression and suicide is very high. We don't recognize that either, that senior citizens struggle with mental illness much more than some younger people. Your teenager, they could be cutting, and cutting can lead to something else. So we have to stop shying away from that conversation. Suicide is real, ideation is real, thoughts are real, plans are real, and you have to be loud about it in order to save the people in your world. Don't shy away from it. Returning, what is it, September? Okay, so fall is coming up, and like I always tell you guys, seasonal affective disorder is not just, winter to spring. It's the change of seasons anytime. And so there are people that feel it more when we're going from summer to fall to winter. There are some people that feel it more when we're going from spring to summer. And I was talking to someone, and they're like, I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm just not, I'm not feeling right. And that's when I recognized that, we're going into a different season. I think daylight savings time is getting ready to change again. So seasonal affective disorder, it's real. Pay attention to that. It's also Virgo season. Hey, it's my month. So happy birthday to all of the Virgos. And I hope that you have a safe and healthy birthday and a wonderful year ahead. Now, I mentioned earlier when I'm talking about suicide prevention, 988, the crisis text line. There's therapy for Black girls, for women. Black Beam is another organization. If you go to my page, my website, I have listings for all of these organizations. There is, I'm not going to say always someone to help, but there's a lot of people out there that can help. And the text lines and the helplines and the warm lines save lives. You know, they save lives. So if you're hurting, really, really hurting, and you can't talk to anybody around you, you're not by yourself. Text somebody, text a line, call a line, but don't sit there and struggle, because that's not healthy, and we need you to stay here. I will touch on another mental illness next week. I'm enjoying doing this because there are things that I'm learning about the different mental illnesses that I didn't know. And so I'm enjoying learning, and I'm also enjoying sharing it with you guys, because we are all we got, and we have to advocate for ourselves, and we have to make sure that we are being diagnosed properly, we are getting the right treatment, and we are getting healthier instead of worse. So divawithdepression.com, you can go there, you can read my blogs, you could get resources, books, sites. You can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Facebook, you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok. I haven't made videos on TikTok yet. Everybody keeps telling me I need to start. So I'm on all platforms, and I love when people message me to ask me, for more information or where they can go. So do not feel bad if you message me on any platform or you email me. Don't give it a second thought, because I understand what you're going through, and I want to help you get through it. Okay? So guys, take care of yourselves. I hope that you find even a moment of peace to help you to get through, and don't be ashamed to not be okay. Take care.
Sometimes